Welcome everybody to Live at 5 today. Live at 5 with Liz. We're talking about queen bee syndrome. And as always, we had like a little segue discussion before we started, nothing in depth, but we hit on a moment that was like perfect segue into this. And I got a text with a Q&A and it was, how will I know it's not a scam? And this for me personally in discussing experience and discussing discernment with other people is kind of like in line with the training I feel like I've been going through since my awakening and really ties into this whole queen bee syndrome scenario that I have opened my eyes to. And I say this not with judgment. I say this coming from a place of let's shine light in the dark and talk about the fact that there's a better way. And it's not about all the finger pointing. It's about like, let's literally look at the ethics of this. Let's look at the state of how we got here and how we shift it. And Jules and I were talking yesterday and it was like a back to the basics kind of discussion. And I realize I've been scammed by so many women my life into thinking that they were genuine, nurturing, supportive, had my best interest at heart, and then get this like flip. And I'm gonna let you chime in here. For me personally, it's come from a place of where it loops into jealousy, competition, or being a mirror for people who aren't ready to deal with their own situation and or shadows. And so it turns into like we give women a harder time than we do men. That's the other point for me. I think I found that women give women a harder time than we do men because we just we're expected to be tough and strong and deal with it. So we just expect other women expect each other to just be tough and strong and deal with it because that's what women do. So it's like you don't provide the nurturing and support that we're built to provide. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like we've tended to be left with all the responsibility, and um, so many of us, I guess, are tired of that now. They recognize it as not being balanced, and not something they would choose. And um, I guess for me, I haven't experienced so much of maybe being scammed by women, but I have fallen out of alignment with women friends for one reason or another, because all of a sudden there was something going on where I didn't feel like I was being treated as an equal or being respected for my time or efforts. And yeah, some of it is mirror stuff that's being shown you about obviously when you get annoyed or irritated with somebody, they're showing you an aspect of yourself.
Mhm.
Then you get to address it.
Mhm.
And then once you're no longer triggered by it, you know that you've accepted in yourself, or well, and really you've accepted and found some sort of balance or the ability to forgive yourself and acknowledge for later. So if you find yourself doing that again, you can go, "Oh, wait, I don't want to do that anymore." And
Mhm.
um, or if you push it a little too far with something and you don't say no soon enough, you can forgive yourself for it. It's like, oh, there I am. Okay, I get to change my mind
Mhm.
and live according to my own integrity.
I I'm noticing as we're sitting here talking about this that I immediately start clenching my jaw. And that is one of those indicators in your body. Your body's telling you where you're still holding on to stuff. And I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before. I know I've talked to other people about it, that your jaw tissue is made out of the same bodily tissue that your womb tissue is made out of.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
So
interesting.
women that have TMJ issues, like a lot of TMJ issues, lockjaw issues, clenching the jaw and tension back here, it's a direct indication of womb trauma. Like we clench our jaws and have jaw issues because it is coming from something that is related to a womb issue. And it can be so tied to the throat because that energy flows. Is that my background noise? Are you hearing background?
I heard a little something, but I'm
Okay.
barely hearing
Um, and and that hits me where it's like we're holding in our womb this like frustration and anger related to or trauma related to other women. And what, I didn't really think about it so much before. And now it's kind of flowing through me. I didn't invite the divine mothers in for this. Should we invite them in? They're like, you're already, we're here.
her.
We're
But
already
thank
here.
you for
You're
digging deep.
channeling us. We're flowing. Um, is that we get it passed down to us as well from our moms and from our grandmothers. So it's like whatever they have in their womb as we are conceived, as we are being born, we pick up whatever trauma is in their womb. And that's some of the stuff that we're meant to release as well. And I think it is the trauma of not being believed by other women. I think that's a big stigma when you're talking about abuse, assault, things of that nature, and other women aren't believing you. And I mean, at least that's what's coming out for me right now related to this. But as you, I don't, it's just like respecting each other for the glorious human beings and women and portals that we are. And
And I think honoring, everybody who and the path that they're on and where they are on that path, and not, you know, trying to place yourself on a higher level than others. Um, that
yeah,
has happened to me a couple of times.
me as well. And Amanda knows, and I've talked about it briefly a little bit, but it is one of the things that I am releasing myself from literally like right now. I found myself in a situation where I am 1,000% feeling looked down upon, treated as less than by another woman in my immediate vicinity, um, to the point of like you said, looking at it and going, yeah, no, I don't wanna do this anymore. It's time to remove myself from this situation. It's reminiscent of my mother. It's like it and, I've had so many situations where you look back at I'm curious to know, as a woman in the professional field, when I was in corporate, my soul-sucking job in corporate real estate, I I was a I was a department head, but I was the youngest one. I was in my mid-20s with a bunch of 50s and 60 somethings who
Mhm.
looked at me like I was a brand new little baby and obviously couldn't know what I was talking about. And it was one of those scenarios where I thought I was losing my mind all the time because I could see the eagle eye view and be like, okay, you guys are all sitting here talking about this stuff and not figuring, like, we're not deciding how it's going to happen. And you don't know how the people at the end of the line are going to have to make it work. And you just think it's all like, it's like, no, there's a bunch of people down here that have to do all the shit that you're like promising. And there was only one other woman in the group of department heads, and we used to have these weekly get-togethers of all the department heads where we would talk about what everybody's got going on, how we would coordinate, what our plan is, stuff coming down the pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. We were in commercial real estate property management. And I really looked at it as like an opportunity for the two of us to work together and be like, okay, we're the women in the boys club. She was boys club. I had a target on my back and didn't realize it at first until like I kind of knew wasn't a huge fan of me. But then I had another female employee who literally pulled me aside one day and was like, you have a target on your back. She is coming for you. She is attempting to throw you under the bus in all these different places because she's threatened by you. And I have felt that through my entire life where I have been intimidating and threatening to other women in such a way where I'm sitting here going, "How? Me? Why?" How have you experienced that in the professional realm as well?
Well, it's interesting because I have not experienced that. And I have been in the professional realm. I have been in a profession that was a male dominated profession,
Mhm.
and I'm not in that anymore. So as you know, it was I owned a wastewater and drinking water environmental laboratory, state certified in California, and where there are a lot of regulations. And um, you know, I started out with a partner who was a man, and he had answers to all the questions. And I just stood back and learned. And then I started to use my naturally gifted science mind to start to puzzle through different things. And I went out and toured treatment plants and got to understand how things worked. And what ended up happening is these men would come in specifically to
I love
talk
how
to me.
you say these men.
These men, all of these men would come in specifically to talk to me and go, "This is happening in this system that I designed. What do you think? Why do you think this is?" And then we'd start looking at it, and I'd ask them a bunch of questions and then help them figure out what
Question.
they were creating. So there was always some kind of chemistry going on that was making the system that they chose for drinking water disinfection a problem. And so I don't
Before I go
know.
take a note.
I don't know what's different between me and you, because I didn't experience that. And but the thing was, when I wasn't there, um, we were we were a female dominant laboratory in a male dominant industry. So
Mhm.
they would come in with samples, and then we did all the work. And I just ended up
Mm,
hiring
sound
women
familiar.
because there weren't men who applied, but they just didn't interview well, and they didn't have good qualifications. And so I hired women. And those women would bear the brunt of male energy that I didn't experience.
Mhm.
If I had been there, I would have said, "You have to take that attitude and get out of here because that's not welcome in here." And that's, I was never there for it. I'd hear about it later, you know, that
Mhm.
they would come in and ask to, they didn't want to deal with whoever, whatever woman was behind the counter, or they were giving them attitude, which I never got attitude. Now they would go and complain to somebody else, but not to me.
This is
It's a
very interesting because what a metaphor. Um, and the questions are part of it. Like women, I find that's what we do. We question things because to me, I like just envision this big flow chart where it's like, okay, when we're getting to the root of the issue, let's ask if this, let's ask your question. And based on the answer, you're going to determine what direction you're going in to get to the root of the issue. It's like a big old tree, right? You're getting down, asking your questions to go through the branches to get down to the tree, to get down to the root of what is happening. And I think that's
And
why I got a lot of
those
pushback
guys
when I
came
asked
in really
questions.
wanting to figure it out. They came in because they specifically wanted to figure it out, and they saw me as somebody who could help.
Yeah. I experienced it. I think a lot of mine had to do with my age as well, is because people were intimidated by somebody that um was young, so I obviously couldn't have known as much as they did. And so when I had solutions to problems that they had long running, that it's like it was an ego thing. It was very much an ego thing. Um and I was working with a lot of men in that scenario. And um remind me to tell you about this text I just got when we hang up. It's about farming. Um, there's there's so many metaphors in this. I almost don't even know where I want to go next because it's the men coming to ask you about kinks in the system
Hmm.
and how the chemistry was off with the wastewater and everything that has been coming through to me from source about relationships is that women are the ones that see the kinks in the system. We can look at the chain, we look at the chemistry in relationships with people and go, and it's always been one of my gifts to be able to sit down with my friends and go, well, do you see this is what he's trying to say? Do you see what this is what she's trying to say? I was always kind of mediator, and I could see the kinks in the system and go, this is where the water treatment, when we talk about our living waters, is off. And this brings me back to the queen bee syndrome in a way that there's so much competition when it comes to men and when it comes to chemistry and relationships. And it is something that has popped up for me in like, why are women arguing over men? And 9 times out of 10, it's over somebody's dusty, crusty son that doesn't respect either of you to begin with. Like, it's like, if he doesn't want you, if he's not interested in you, why are you fighting another female for his attention? Move on.
Yeah.
Like, it oh, I've experienced a lot of jealousy with other women as well because I've always gotten along with men better than women because of the way my relationship with my mom was on a friendly basis, and other women were intimidated by that. So it's like I remember in college I had one friend who there was a guy she was interested in that she had had a history with. They were not together anymore, but he and I met up one night and we're hanging out. We took a picture, sent it to her. She was like distraught the next day thinking that something had happened between us, and I was like, the fact that you would think that I would go into a relationship with somebody that I knew you had feelings for, that I knew you had a history with, is almost like offensive to me. And like, did you ever have that? What's your experience in your queen bee syndrome? Is it relationships with men? Is
It's
it
relationships
family?
with men.
Yeah.
So, my relationships with women, it was always something that came up between the other woman and me. There was not, it was never about men. It was all my romantic relationships. So I did have, with two women that I can think of offhand, there was a weird control aspect about them where they wanted to either put me in my place or um, I just, as soon as I got my, as soon as I found my internal power and my own boundaries, then all of a sudden I was not a generous person. I never let you speak. Which, had a difference of opinion, and I was tired of the same old pattern that was playing out in a friendship. And I I wasn't very balanced about like going, no, I'm not doing this. Um, I hadn't learned how to do that yet, but um, it has been in romantic relationships. So whatever I wanted didn't matter. Um, who I was not how they saw me, and not what they wanted me to be, not what they, you know, they're always pushing me to be something that I wasn't. And if I didn't fall in line, the dynamics were all extremely uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So that's where it was for me. And there was only one relationship my whole life where it wasn't too bad, or it wasn't quite like that, but even that person was, um definitely had to have things his way. He was just nice about it.
I Yeah, and, like, so for me and I'm curious to know what your relationships were like with the women in the men's lives, because for me, the queen bee syndrome comes from, like, women being put in scenarios where we are bumping heads in competition versus community, and the familial side of things comes up for me big time where, like, what I've experienced going through my divorce. And I don't do this to point fingers because again, I send them back to the light with love and forgive them for they know not what they do, but as a pure example of going WTF, I especially giving birth. My ex-mother-in-law, I recall hearing her one time. Number 1, my ex-husband had 1 sister. She had 4 daughters, and she was the oldest, the first grandchild. When she had her baby shower, her own mother didn't even go to her baby shower because they were too busy doing something at church. And she had to like call her and be like, "Hi, we're waiting for you to open presents. Are you coming?" And she was kind of like, "I'm not going to make it." And to me, when I heard that, I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And
Yeah.
like, your own mother isn't coming to your baby shower for the birth of her very first grandchild, and it's a girl, like. And then I later heard my ex-mother-in-law say, "Well, watching like women becoming mothers, that's just what we do. But watching my son become a father is like, oh, be still my heart." And that was another one of those moments where I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" Like what women go through in pregnancy and growing a child and having a baby is absolutely a miracle. It is a gift from the universe. It is a portal. It is like mothers, pregnant mothers, like new deliver have post labor deserve to be nurtured, deserve to be supported, deserve to be taken care of, deserve to like be pampered while their body heals and while they're growing life. And to just look at another woman that's pregnant and be like, "Well, this is what we do. You just figure it out." To me is just like absolutely like, what the hell is that? What have we done to our hearts, to our nurturing hearts for women to be able to look at each other and, like, not give a shit that you're growing life, that you're, like, struggling, that you're. And when I would make comments about that, I was told I was disrespectful, and it's like, "No, like, this scenario needs to change. We should be nurturing each other and be
Yeah.
there to support each other." And And it's like this weird mentality of women against women, of like the mother-in-law versus the daughter-in-law, or like the sister-in-laws versus each other. And like when I actually spoke out about what was going on in our household with alcohol abuse and just our relationship, and it's like me and my 2 young daughters being in a like dangerous situation, nobody was concerned. Everybody was worried about protecting him, and I'm like, when did women stop caring about protecting one another and children? When did that happen?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, when did it not happen? You know, I No. So, don't we come from a history of being in competition for our very survival by snagging a good man with a good income?
Mhm.
Um, and that the only thing that's changed is it's not like that anymore. That doesn't make life easier, but we can go out and we can work. We can get a bank account. We can get a loan. We can get credit cards. We can do all those things. So we can get all pretty much any job that we want as long as we are physically capable of doing it. So, but how long has that been so? And maybe there's just some genetic uh, echo still happening.
A And what comes through to me, like, what channels through to me is tribal, indigenous tribes, like, all the way back to our indigenous ancestors, like, when women gave birth, we were surrounded by women. We
Yeah,
were supported by women, we were held by women, it was a natural thing. You were literally fed like, the other women help take care of your family, help take care of your children, help take care of what was going on while you recovered. You were surrounded by a support system, and it was something that we knew to do. We were the nurses, we were the doctors, we were the herbalists, we were the healers, we were the medicine women to our people and respected for doing that and supporting one another.
yeah,
And then at some point it turned into, yeah, we're competing for getting a guy with a good income. And and the other thing that comes through is heart chakra blockages. It's like women being inverted into this role of carrying all the responsibility. So it's like we get this block in our natural desire to nurture. And we've turned into, I call it the plastic people. We've turned into to plastic people where everything is just the like smile, the fake, the we're gonna smile to your face and then we're gonna turn around and be mean girls behind your back. Or ostracize you or judge you for actually, like, having a heart and caring about what's going on. And I do think that's the big question. When did it all change?
yeah. Well, it depends on your culture, I guess.
Yeah.
Tribal cultures, they lived in connected community, and there were definitely masculine and feminine roles that made sense, and nothing was more important than no role was more important, and it was the grandmothers who made the decisions because
Mhm.
our brains work differently. We look at things differently. We Men are designed to be strong and protect, and they need to know what they're protecting.
Mhm.
Need protecting, and women women's brain the two hemispheres work together. We get a bigger holistic picture, and the grandmothers made the decisions. I don't know if every tribe was like that, but from what I've read in general, our American, native tribes, that was how they operated. So there are European tribal things also, like the Romany or the Celts or the Druids. I don't really know as much about them.
I
So
and this is familiar because I had a discussion with somebody recently where he mentioned it was the grandmothers and the tribes that made the decisions. And if there were new leaders, new male leaders, if there was war coming up, the grandmothers decided who was going to represent the tribe, who was going to lead into battle. They were the ones who could actually look at the characters that they were dealing with and decide who was worthy, who was going to be a good leader. I gotta say, the entire time we've been talking, my left ankle has just been itching, and I'm like, if that's not my root chakra on my feminine side going, yeah, and my ribs on my right side, which is related to my masculine, my ex-husband. I got a big old past life energy coming out there, right? Your body keeps
yeah,
the score of everything that's getting aggravated when you have these conversations.
We should
Um,
do a session and take care of that.
we should what?
I should do a session for you and see if we can take care of that.
I was gonna ask you if you would do one with me
I would.
for my right hip and my all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I wish I had you here to actually
I know.
hold your ankles and it, but I don't need to. I don't need to. I just like doing it that way.
I also recently got a bee sting on the front of this ankle too, and
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, she's healing me." Um, you know, and it's really interesting that what I've been going through here with this situation and finally deciding to leave because I recently had a reading where it was my grandfather came through and was like, "You are at a fork in the road and you have two paths you can go, and neither decision is wrong because if you go down one and it doesn't work out for you, you're wise enough to know to back out and go down the other one." And it was right before I decided to stay here longer. And I thought I was going to do that, and now I am backing down that path and going down the other one, and I feel like that was my grandfather going, it's not gonna work out for you." Man, this is itching. Um, and I feel like this is so much related to what we've been doing in these women's groups as well. These roundtable discussions is providing real support for women and making a space that's okay for you to feel, for you to speak, for you to be authentic, for you to let out whatever it is you want to let out without another woman going, "Well, she's doing this and I'm competing with her for this." And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Um
I really love all the women in our group.
I do too. I really do too. And I am I'm being led back to this moment where we talk about intimacy with men and the womb, what's being transferred and held in our wombs. And I realized that generationally for me, like I'm wondering what pattern for you is popping up in your generational line because for me it's women not believing women. Like I recognize that my mother was in an abusive relationship and my grandmother, her mother didn't believe her when she was talking about it. I ended up in an abusive relationship and none of the women in my life wanted to believe me when I finally was like, "Hi." And that is the like everyone else being quiet about it and just letting it slide and like, "No, you're here to actually be like the squeaky wheel." Like,
Yeah. You know, my line, the one that I know about, the one that I feel is important, is through my mom. Not the women on my dad's side, but on my mom's side.
mhm,
All of us, like made bad choices and married the wrong person, and um, I'm getting messages too, but I can check with I can respond to them later. We all made bad choices and ended up in relationships with men who didn't treat us like we matter.
mhm,
And but here's the thing about also with my line of women, and that is along the line somewhere we all started divorcing our first husbands. And so at a time when divorce was extremely frowned upon, not okay. Uh,
mhm,
my mom divorced her first husband because she wanted to be a teacher and she went and got her bachelor's degree she got a bachelor of arts. I just found her diploma the other day. I didn't know that her name used to be Mary Johanna McClure. She was Mary Jo Smith, married to my dad for like 50 years, but she was Mary Jo McClure, married to this farmer who wouldn't even go to her graduation ceremony. So she'd left him. She wasn't going to get what she wanted. And you know what? Her mom, my grandmother, did the same thing. And I don't know why she was so unhappy with this first husband, but my grandma was uh, like the women were, they they took amazing leaps. They're from Iowa, from a farming family. My grandma moved to Long Beach, California, and became the administrative assistant at a newspaper.
I love that.
And I'm pretty sure she divorced that first husband, um, and then she went and did that. And my mom did a phone interview for an elementary school teaching position in California again, while on a party line in Iowa, and they hired her.
You're
And
giving me such inspiration right now while I'm looking for stuff and being like,
so yeah, my I think so for me, the problem the problem that gets to be cleared is naivete. Thinking everybody is good. Thinking everybody will have your best interest at heart.
yeah, agreed. I'm in that same we're in a boat together and we got oars.
Right.
We're getting oars because I 1,000% agree, and I realized in my marriage I was never gonna get not just what I wanted, but what I needed out of that relationship. I was not getting any kind of emotional fulfillment. We were roommates, we were not partners. I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and he was like, "I mean, your husband, your partner that you're spending your life with should be your umbrella in the storm when it's raining, or at least be holding the umbrella for
Right.
you, like one or the other." And if he is like taking the umbrella and going, "You go figure out what it is you're doing and don't bother me with your storm," like then you have the wrong person. And it's just, yeah. And if the other women around you can't see that, this is my next thing. I know I damn it, I know I have to cut it off in a few minutes, but I could continue talking about this for hours. Um,
You should do a part two.
we will definitely do a part 2. Um, is we started out this conversation, we were talking about food, before we got on here, and we were having this conversation about where is your line and your ethics and, like, not even, like, morality, but just kinda like you're going to serve things to other people that you yourself wouldn't consume, and you can't control what other people are going to eat. And when I talk food, I'm also talking knowledge. I'm also talking what they're watching, what they're listening to, what they're filling their time with. I can't control what they're going to consume, but I don't necessarily feel like I want to be the one responsible for serving them something that I myself wouldn't eat. And that is what I found in so many interactions with female friends and female relationships, where I was in a relationship with somebody that I will tell you, 99% of the women that I was friends with and that knew him and that loved him would never get into a relationship with him,
Yeah.
would not stand for what I was putting up with as far as the drinking, as far as the disrespect, as far as the not being willing to take care of himself, as far as not respecting me or giving me what I needed emotionally, physically, any of that. They wouldn't have stood for that. But for me to want something better for myself was, but oh, he's such a good guy. Well, he's a nice guy to you because you're not in a relationship with him. But if you had to be in a relationship, like if you had to put up with stuff, would you stay in a relationship with him? And it's like you get the stonewall. And you're like,
Right.
so why is it that you expect me, another woman that you should have compassion for, to be in a relationship with someone that you yourself would not even stand for the treatment that they are giving you? And then to turn around and judge me for wanting to be out of that relationship, not only judge me, but throw me under the bus and defend him. And it's like those are the moments where I stood there and I was like, have I lost my mind? Have I lost my mind looking around at all these people going,
Weird.
fuck? And I'm like, and Source keeps sending me this song. I get channel messages through songs all the time. That's like the song that says, "You're beautiful just the way you are. You don't need to change a thing. The world can change its heart." And I keep reminding myself, like, no, you're not crazy. You're the one that saw through all of this the entire time. And the people around you had their own issues, their own mirrors, their own shadows, and couldn't see it. Give yourself grace. And you finally found some supportive women. But that's my question to people when you question everything, is like, where is the humanity Where have we lost our connection to our heart to be able to look at our sister and go, "You know what? He's a nice friend to have, but I wouldn't put up with that in a relationship either, and you shouldn't have to put up with it either."
Yeah, I agree. It's weird. It's like people are defective, you know, and I do. It's a disconnection from. It's a disconnection internally, a disconnection from source and from earth, and just not being able to have compassion and understanding and acceptance for somebody. I look at I look at that and feel like that person, that's what they're doing to themselves. And that's got to be hard. And the only way they can feel better is to make somebody else feel bad,
Yeah. I mean,
or to hope somebody else feels bad. I don't think anybody can make anybody anything, but we have to allow it. But
I had 2
yeah,
women specifically tell me when I left my ex-husband, one of them said, "I wondered how long you would last," and another one said that literally, like, behind my back, so to speak, but when they would have conversations about us or they would see stuff, they would all say, "Bless her heart," like, "God bless her for dealing with that." But then when I finally went, "This is unsafe, this is unhealthy, and it's time for me to leave," they all went, "We
right.
can't support you."
That's yeah, because that's when it gets real, and they need to fit in. They need to fit in, or what has happened to you will happen to them.
And this is where, like, my soft heart gets so upset because it's like, again, where the fuck is the humanity? When did fitting in become so much more important than doing what's right?
Being alone, being ostracized, being shunned, being judged, being talked about, being smack talked about. That takes courage, and that's what you did. And some people
And
just
now
aren't.
I have to go back into it to fight for my children. Now I gotta go back into it. I gotta go back into the swamp to get my babies out.
I've been seeing this. I've been seeing this meme going around where people are going, God, why did you make me have to crawl out of a swamp? We'll use your word. Why did you make me have to crawl out of a swamp to get to where I am? And God says, so you can go back in and get somebody else that needs out. So, congratulations, Lizzie. You know the way out.
Oof. Oh, yeah. Yep. There's my swamp queen.
I wish mine, but it's like on my back in a place where we can't share it with the general public. I can't
You know,
without.
our ancestors lived topless and it was no problem. It's it's society that weaponized our bodies against us and made us feel ashamed of them to hide them. Ugh, man, it and this is where I am. We're gonna have to do it. We're absolutely gonna have to do a part 2 on this because there's so much more talk about women coming back together as the medicine women to support each other and anchor codes for each other, and I finally did a write-up for this art piece that I'm gonna share tonight and that I'm selling, and it's literally related to birth, and, like, at first I thought it was just a flower, and then I realized, well, that looks like a cervix and a baby being born and, like, all the tissue of the uterus opening up to let this baby out, and I had really intense birth experiences and my first one was during COVID, and they wouldn't let my doula come in, and had she been there, I might have had a very different
Yeah.
experience because I did the whole thing myself. Now the midwives helped, but my ex-husband didn't do any of the preparation. I did hypnobirthing and all that stuff because I was going through my awakening then, and he did none of the breath work, did none of the exercises. And I remember my legs being so tired because she was like wedged where this hip injury is. She was wedged in my pelvis. So every time I sat on the ball, it was actually painful instead of comfortable. And like the only comfortable position I had during almost 24 hours of unmedicated labor was standing up and like leaning on the wall or like leaning over the edge of the bed. And my legs were so exhausted by the end of it. And I ended up having to have an emergency C section. And now I'm trying to remember if it was her or Adeline or if it was both of them. I have to sit down and tap back into that one. But she was born, was it Addie? With an entirely female medical team. I had to have emergency C-sections with both of my daughters, and they were entirely female medical teams that delivered them, which was really cool. But this whole just concept of birth and motherhood and how women have just turned their backs on seeing the beauty in it and supporting each other, and women are dealing with postpartum depression and unsupported motherhood and literally going into like nervous breakdowns, and how the kids are getting affected because when mom is dysregulated, so are the kids. And that's where so much of this shit comes from, is that our mothers end up dysregulated because they don't get the support we need, and that's what gets passed down to the next generation. So you're then just expected to figure it out living in a dysregulated state and move on. And now we're ascending in humanity into higher levels of consciousness and realizing that, we had to send extraterrestrials from other star lineages here to wake people up. Go, humans.
Oh, you.
You've been asleep. Let us wake up to our natural condition of true love, because literally today the Bible verse that came up for me, it's always a message every day when I get my Bible quote, which again, the religious trauma for me sometimes makes it difficult to come out with it. But today was John 15:12. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Like,
And what's so hard about that?
right? And for people, when grew up in a religious community where the commandment is love each other as I have loved you, and the way that we were loved is unconditional, love each other unconditionally. And yeah, yeah. And I'm so excited that we're ascending back into that, and my naivete and my awakening. It's 555 right now. My naivete and my awakening was believing that if I gave unconditional love, I would automatically get it back, and that we were just going to move into this state of unconditional love everywhere. And then I was like, oh, I'm going through discernment training and realizing that not everybody's going to do that, and that we're moving back into the state of unconditional love because there's a whole bunch of us that are going to bring a certain level of awareness that is going to make people go, oh, this is what's been happening. And we have to like create these new systems of unconditional love and existence together. So we actually have to like do the work.
Yeah.
We all got to do the work.
Got to do the work. The work works if you do the work.
It works if you work it, right? I learned that recently in Al-Anon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, so much work to do, but in a good way. But in a good way. Well, thank you for joining me today, Amanda. We're gonna do a part two. Should we do it tomorrow, or should we do it another like next week?
What do I have going on tomorrow? It seems like, oh, tomorrow I am joining that broadcast about how to get your
Oh,
land.
that's right. I am excited for that. All right. Well, we'll talk about when we do a part two in the next few days, but we definitely there's more to discuss with this for sure. All right. Hang on 2 seconds. I'm gonna tell you one thing when we start recording. Thank you everybody for joining us today live at 5. I'm gonna share this on socials and I want to hear from other women. I want to hear what your experience with queen bee syndrome is, what your experience is with women in your environment and how to develop those supportive relationships again instead of being in this constant state of competition because we're meant to love each other. We're meant to support each other. And this is part of it. The establishment knows that when women come together, we're unfucking stoppable. So they've done everything they can to keep us separated so that we cannot unite our power. So can we please topple the establishment by uniting our power? Please. That's just my polite request. Thank you. All right. Good night, everyone. God bless. Love each other as our creator has loved us.